Welcome to the Live Full, Work Fun podcast. This is the show to encourage you to live your life to the fullest and do fun work that fuels your lifestyle. Hi, I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. Every week, you'll be introduced to amazing guests, useful resources, and inspirational stories. You'll discover opportunities and perspectives to shape your version of living full and working fun. Hi there, and welcome to Season 9 of the Live Full, Work Fun podcast. I'm Gayla Scrivener, joined by my co-host, Fran Attilio.
Hey, Gayla.
How's it going today?
It is a good day. Every day is a good day, but it's a good day.
It is a great day. This season, we're exploring the theme, Don't Let the Start Stop You. It's a powerful reminder that while beginnings can be daunting, they're also the gateway to growth, success, and happiness. Throughout this season, we're going to be discussing how to push through those initial difficulties and take that important first step towards your big goals, even when it feels overwhelming. And you know what, Fran? I am super excited about today's topic. We are going to talk about a great strategy that certainly helps you think big, a strategy that opens up creativity and imagination on so many levels. I'm going to say, anyone out there listening, if you don't consider yourself a creative person or you don't work in a field typically labeled as artistic or creative, don't worry. That does not matter because I believe we all have the power to design our lives and tap into our creative thinking. We all have creative thinking abilities. Whether you see yourself as creative or not, this applies to everyone. So, Fran, what are we going to be talking about today?
We're going to talk about the Walt Disney process. I recently learned about it, and it was one of those light bulb going off, mic drop kind of moments where I was driving and listening to an audiobook and it was explained and I had to pull over. It was a game changer for me because it addresses something that I think we all do. It involves talking to three different people on any idea you have, even a problem you're trying to solve. But really what this targets are the people of a creative process. And again, to what you said, everybody, whatever you're doing, if you started a business, you're a creator. If you are running a team, you're a creator. So in these big moments where you have a dream, a idea, one of those light bulb moments that goes off, there are three people you talk to: the dreamer, the realist, and the critic, who I have renamed the advisor because I'm not big on critics. Sorry, Walt Disney.
And you introduced me last week about the concept, and we got so excited about it that we were like, oh man, we've got to hit record and talk about this more. Fran, how did you learn about the Walt Disney process? And it's been around for a long time.
Long time. I am currently studying neurolinguistic programming. And it really simply said is changing the thought, you change everything. We are both believers in that. We think that. And neurolinguistic programming has been around a long time. And I'm just always interested, many people don't realize as marketers, we're constantly studying the brain and how human beings think and work. It's why we do what we do, why I'm doing the yoga training and all these other things. So in the neurolinguistics programming, when it got to talking about changing thought within business, he gave this example of Disney. And the beautiful thing about the process is it's a very simple conversation. But the big shift for me is that advisor person. We dream an idea. We have this idea. We go, oh, this is going to be great, especially people starting a business.
We're talking to three different people, but it's the people in our minds, right?
Yes. It's like he would actually sit down in a room with three chairs. They were empty.
Interesting.
He would have a conversation.
You're splitting your personality into the dreamer, the realist, and the advisor. Exactly. So let's talk about that dreamer.
That, and each conversation, the other two have to be shut off. And when you're talking to the dreamer, there's no negative thoughts. There's no, oh, but I can't. There's nothing. It's let the dream out, dream big, let it all out. And you think of all the possibilities. You let your creativity completely run wild and beautiful and open and free, and you write that all down. What does this dream look like? Think best case scenario, whether you want to make a vision board, whether you want to just jot down the thoughts, or it's literally just having a conversation out loud with yourself, however you want to just have the dream. all positive, all possibilities, limitless. That's the concept with the dreamer.
So don't even think of limits. Don't
Nope.
even,
They'll come in.
If money wasn't an issue, if physics wasn't an issue, whatever you want to say, wouldn't it be cool if, get it all out? Is that right?
Absolutely. So this is that being a little kid again and dreaming your biggest dream and not letting anybody tell you it can't be done. The beautiful part of this, and a lot of us can do that part. I'm sure that a lot of our listeners have had that moment where they go, oh, I have this great idea and it's going to be awesome. And I can feel it. I can feel it inside me because there's other people like me that I know they need this. And then the next day you wake up and you get all these thoughts of, oh, but I don't have this and I don't have that. And we think that's a stopping point. It's not a stopping point. That's actually, and I'm going to jump ahead, that's actually the advisor. Disney called it a critic, which is typically what we hear in our head. It's the critical voice. It shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. The advisor should be there to say, okay, these are the potential obstacles and challenges, and it's okay to let that one talk. And you make that list. That will actually come to help refine and improve the idea. And you don't let the critic or the advisor be, it has to be constructive. It should not be destructive criticism. It should not be destructive in any way. It should be, okay, these are potential challenges. Maybe we don't have enough people or money right now. And you just list them. There's no but after that. You just say, right now, we only have X budget. We only have X number of people, or we haven't found the right supplier yet, whatever it may be. Just list them. They're not telling the dreamer no. These are just obstacles. So you now have these two lists. One doesn't supersede the other.
We have the dream, we have the realist, and we have the advisor. What's the difference between the realist perspective and the advisor perspective?
So the realist comes in and takes both the dreamer and the critic and goes, okay, I hear you both. How do we make this a reality? Okay, critic, I get it. Hey, advisor, I got it. We only have these resources. And dreamer, I get it. This is the dream. So what can we do right now with what we have to get this going, to get this started? The realist is kind of like the mediator. They make it practical and make those steps forward. We talk a lot about chunking it out. You know, what's the right best step to take? That's what the realist does. They say, I hear you, dreamer, and I hear you, advisor, and here's my plan to make it go forward. The realist is the glue. It's the voice, and the three keep talking. And the dreamer can sometimes push a little harder, or the critic could, and the realist could, but no one voice is bigger or better than the other. So you don't stop dreaming, but you also don't live in an unrealistic state.
As you explain that, it's almost like my role with my clients. I'm like that realist. As an implementer, it's like, okay, how do I have these big dreams and look at these potential obstacles and challenges and just marry them together, make it work?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's a tool to help you realize a dream, especially when it feels really big. He actually created this, or at least he first shared it when he created the parks. And those are massive undertakings.
Oh, yeah.
Massive. And think about it. That was how he managed it. I'm sure sometimes he was just doing it in his head. Sometimes it was probably on paper. Sometimes it might have been with his team where he probably played the role of one of the three. I think that's where that's don't let the start stop you comes in. Keep dreaming. Keep dreaming. Let the realist and the advisor help those dreams become a reality. Because sometimes the dream can get so big it feels impossible. So the realist and the advisor really help you find that path forward.
We all have a critic within us. We probably call it critic. We should shift our mindset to be the advisor so that we can marry that and get into the realist perspective. I can see how the dreamer can think big, but I also see, as I've done it myself, like what you had alluded to just a little while ago, I have this big energy. I had this great idea. You and I met and I thought, oh man, I can conquer the world. And then I wake up the next morning and it's like all the energy is totally out. That momentum is gone because the reality of what I have to do here and now, it seems overwhelming to even start that first step. Do you ever get that?
Absolutely. And one of the things I do now when I have a new idea is I do what I call brain dump. I like to voice text into my digital notebook. I just brain dump the whole idea. And it's my way of saying I recognize this idea as valid. I read it the next day with the realist eyes. Is this a reality for me before I let the advisor in? Does it need some fine tuning? Am I way off the mark here? Or does it need to be staged? Are there phases of this? But yeah, I definitely relate to that, Gayla. There's some products we're about to launch that I did it to myself years ago. There's products I'm about to launch that have been in my head for 3-4 years. But at the time, I talked myself out of it. When I did this process, I went, oh, wait, they're still good and they're doable. And I'm never going to challenge a mind like Disney, but I really like our shift of it to advisor because it's not a critical process. It's just how do we have that flow with the idea and make it not feel so overwhelming?
Well, how does this translate with your now, next, and future process?
I love that you asked that. This is exactly what now, next, and future is meant to support. So this conversation you have with the dreamer, the realist, and the advisor, now you're going to chunk that out. What are the now steps? What are the next and what are the future? So now, for those who may not have heard season 8, now is the no other way forward. These are the steps you have to do to get this started. You're starting a business. You need to go open a bank account. You need to go get an LLC or whatever the steps are. You're starting a project. I need to research material, do a product brief, whatever it may be. The next steps follow after the now. They're the ones you can't do without doing the now. You have to do the now first to get to the next. Future are where there are bigger parts or ideas that they're going to take more time or they're not fully defined yet. So it goes in the future bucket to say, I want to remember this part of the dream. It's a distraction or we're not ready to tackle it yet. It's going to distract from getting the dream off the ground. That's what now and next is your focus. Future is it's coming and it's intentional. So if the brain has to hold on to something, you're wasting energy holding on to that something. That's what the future bucket is about. Now your brain actually knowing that, okay, she's got it or he's got it. It's recorded somewhere, your brain can now shift energy to remembering other things and working on other things. So that's what the future bucket is meant to be. Where is this going to go and how this is going to evolve? You and I do this a lot where what's that first test run? What's that first look at doing this? You dream big. We recently for a client I had this big dream for this big training resource and we chunked it back down to a learning library. Brilliant. Because now the pressure's off on figuring out what this massive online training program when we don't even have the content built out yet.
Right?
So
right.
Yeah, that was a big shift. So the now, next, and future helps you make the dream doable.
And even we had a conversation about a mutual client of ours, a project that we're collaborating on, and you were working up the proposal. When we were talking about that, it was like you were light years ahead of where we needed to be. And when we had this conversation to say, yeah, we can make that future thing possible, our inner advisor came as like, oh man, this is the challenge. This is the challenge. This is the challenge. And then when we got it to the realist, and I guess in that particular scenario, I was the realist to say, reel it back a little bit and let's just focus on this one thing because we're going to get to this end result better or less stressful, maybe not better, but less stressful, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, Gayla, you just put up a good example. I think when you have someone, a good friend that you can really turn to and rely on, I feel like you and I become the dreamer, realist, and advisor for each other in different cases. So it can be with someone else that you have this conversation. Just be careful. This is my only advice. If you're going to have this conversation with someone else, really make sure it's someone who is in the same mindset as you. Unfortunately, it can happen that if you bring it up even to a family member and they're not where you are, they could end up being an excessive destructive critic that talks you out of the idea. Make sure
because they're trying to protect you, right? They don't want to see financial hurt or disappointment. You know, sometimes the critics around us do it with good intention for the most part. I believe that. I believe that there's more good people than evil people. So the critics, the people that love us, want to see us not get hurt. But we need to dream and try different things. But in this scenario, I mean, I could imagine Walt Disney doing this on a personal level and playing all three roles. But he had big teams. So how do you bring this into the team level? You play different roles in different meetings and different.
I think for what we do here is we've implemented where everybody's the dreamer. Everybody starts sharing the dream, and somebody's taking, usually, we take all the notes down and then we put it through, because I don't ever want it to be, now you could do it where you are the opposite voice, but what I want it to be is more of a teaching moment. Instead of me being the advisor when the dreamers are talking, I want to dream with them. I want them to always feel like they can dream. And then the advisor comes in and we think through, okay, what are the obstacles and the challenges? And then together we look at the realistic. And what's funny is usually when you get to that point, and I think Disney did it different. I think he did realist second, but I do it a little bit different. It's really cool because the challenges aren't so scary. You're like, oh, it is possible to do this. We just can't do this part right now, but we can eventually do it, but we're just going to kind of chunk it out and do this. And there's a way forward to get this off the ground by the time we wanted, and then work towards that other next goal. Okay, cool. And it empowers your team because they feel very much part of the process.
So I get it. It's more of, as a leader in your organization, we have small businesses, so we don't have big teams, but it is creating a culture, allowing our team to be all three: the dreamer, the realist, and the advisor, and leading them into, hey, we want them to have these big ideas. And we, as the leaders, do not want to squash their ideas too quickly, right?
Absolutely, Gayla. And if you've ever seen a traditional product brief, they can be very overwhelming.
Yes.
And especially for young team members who don't have a lot of experience with that kind of work. Giving them a worksheet of what's the dream, what are the obstacles and challenges, and what's the reality. They can do that. They can brainstorm on that. They can absolutely come to you. And I feel like it's more encouraging as a conversation starter. Yes, eventually you have to do a real product brief and see if it's profitable and those other parts. But I think this makes dreaming so much better. Everybody has a dream. And the only thing I was sharing with you before, there's this quote by Les Brown, and he says, instead of living our fears, let's live our dreams. And this makes living your dreams possible. And you're right, what you said before about people who love you, it's usually fear for you, fear for your safety. And fear has its place in our life, right? Crossing the street and all that stuff. But this just feel like it opens up the conversation with the dreamer, and it makes dreaming possible, like really embracing dreaming as go for it, dream away.
I think that that's so important, and not stop at the advisor. Now, the advisor would be saying things like, I can't because I don't have the money. The realist would say, how can we make this possible to have the money? Or I'm just doing money as an example.
So he always made sure that they didn't say can't.
Got it. In the advisor role?
In the advisor role, it would be more of, we have only this much money right now, and it will cost this to do it. Advisor could also be, are there laws we have to watch out for? Because he was dealing with land and property. But that can apply to products people are launching. Are you aware of all the packaging laws in the country? If you're building a building, do you know all the zoning regulations? Like, the advisor was more of trying to think of all the things,
the unknowns.
Like in product development, a big thing that I always encountered was, it was the question you didn't ask that ended up hurting you. Are you asking everything about the product, the safety of it, the testing of it? That's what the advisor does. They're trying to list out everything you have to think of that you will have to do and address. And that's where the realist comes in, and then figure out the timing and the resources for it.
Oh, I'm so glad you clarified that, because the word can't just shuts you down. That's a totally different type of mindset that we need to alleviate or just get rid of. I had a third grade teacher that we were not allowed to say can't. And she was like, can't never did anything. And so So we would get in not real big trouble by saying can't. We were trained to not say can't in third grade. I love that about her.
I love that. That's my dad's philosophy. We weren't allowed to say it. It was a worse 4-letter word than the other 4-letter words in my house. So
Nice.
and that's where that destructive critic comes in. Instead of that's why I like the word advisor, because the advisor goes, okay, I see what you want to do. I'm with you. And here are the things I need you to consider, not but, because but would have shut off the dreamer's idea. I love your idea. And I just need you to sit down with the realist now. We need to sit together because there are these things we have to consider. We have to consider money, timing, resources. Where does this fit in our queue? Do we have the time? Is it realistic with all the other workload we have going on? So the advisor, I feel like that word is more appropriate for what their real role is. They're there to help. The dreamer can keep dreaming then and dream these big ideas. And the advisor is there to keep the balance, and the realist pulls it all together.
Oh, Fran, I think this has been very eye-opening for me. We hadn't talked about this off camera, and I want to incorporate this in my team, in my philosophy, and learn more about it. I'm sure that there's books all over about it, and I'll do some research, put some links of what books I'll buy to learn more about this process in the show notes. But do you have any final thoughts or advice to our listeners who want to try?
Yes. One is don't let go of your imagination. My father used to say the only difference between a child and an adult is the loss of imagination. Be a dreamer, dream these ideas. And when you do, put it through these filters instead of talking yourself out of it. Not every dream is possible in the right now, but this process helps you find the ones that you can start to tackle.
I love that, Fran. I would love to give a gift to all the listeners. I'd love to give them a Don't Let the Start Stop You journal. You can use it as a gratitude journal. You can use it as a dreaming journal. It is just a lined journal, 80 pages of lined paper, that's an empty book for you to dream and live full, work fun. And I think that this Disney creative process, in order to live full and work fun, we have to be creative on our thinking to see what makes this possible. Whatever this is in our mind, what makes this possible? And I love that you went over this process today. I'll send any listener who signs up to get the journal by going to livefullworkfun.com/journal. All you have to do is pay for the price of postage and enter in your info, and I'll pop it in the mail for you. Might as well get started now. And Fran, I think you have a flow forward.
I do.
download.
And I think they go together, Gayla. So mine is it's a printout, but we also have digital downloads for phone background, tablet, or computer. And it says the words that sit over my desk every day, which is, what can I do in this moment with what I have to keep moving towards my goals? And that is my motivational check-in. It sits above my desk. So when I'm in the middle of things, or as I walk out my door each day, I see it. And I feel like if they have that in your journal, and then each day they have like you said, whether it's gratitude or it's a dream journal, they kind of pick up that journal and say, this is what I'm going to do next, and keep it moving. This is how we move towards our dreams.
I will have both links in the show notes. Downloads is under 10touchcreative.com/blow forward. Thank you so much for being with Fran and I today. Remember, don't let the start stop you. And until next time, live full, work fun.